I'm super pumped because you know this has been a long time coming that we have been talking about doing this. So this is Carolyn, and she has been one of our clients here and my client here at PCC for over 2 years now, right? Yeah, we're
Yep.
week like 111, 112, which means we just crossed 2 years would be 104. Wow. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of just dive into your story and see who it can help. So if you want to just rewind us back to just a little bit of your history before finding PCC and what your weight loss journey had looked like then, and maybe just what kind of led up to you restarting that journey this time around.
Okay. So I was a high school athlete. I was on the swim team, practiced twice a day. So, never had any issues growing up. Got out of high school, did not, continue swimming when I was in college. So then started gaining like the freshman 15, whatever. Went on my first diet when I was 21 years old and I weighed 123 pounds, which in hindsight is ridiculous, but it's the way that, social media is. It's the way that we're, kind of expected to be. So then over the years, I just did everything. I've done the shake systems. I've done the formal national programs. I've done pills, a medical clinic. And I could lose, but then I would, gain it right back. And there were periods of time in between where I, would try, or sometimes I just gave up. It just was exhausting. I just couldn't do it. So then fast forward to, I think it was 2019. Long story short, I was at a Kansas City Chiefs playoffs game. It was snowing. I slipped down a hill and fractured my leg, just the fibula, just the small bone. But I was non-weight bearing. I had to have surgery, non-weight bearing for I think 9 weeks. And that was tough, trying to move myself around at the size that I was. And so I made a pact with God that if he would get me through it without blowing out my shoulders, trying to lift myself around the house, that I would do something about it. And so I started July of 19, did it on my own for a while and did okay, but then kind of got to a plateau. And at that point, I had been following you on Instagram for several months, loved your message, loved the way that you came across. So I reached out to you, started working with you, and then I have continued with you since then, very successfully.
Yeah, well, I actually will correct you there. Remember, you reached out, and at the time I had offered one-time consultations on my website, and like you could like pay one off for those. And so we did that. And I remember I like set you up with like macros and like a whole sheet. And I was like, here's what you do. We'll follow up at this time. And you were like, cool. And then I think like maybe a couple of weeks, a month went by, you're like, okay, I'll do 6 months. Like I'm ready. So that was cool. I definitely don't offer that anymore, but I like how that kind of rolled from that. Yeah, so kind of just for context sake, I think you've detailed it before. Tell me if I'm wrong. In terms of when you started on your own to when we started, you said you had lost about 50 pounds? Is that right?
I think so. That's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I think it was about that. Yeah.
Okay. And then since then, where are we at now? Because I know we just hit a new low.
I should have this memorized. I can't believe I don't. It's 116 pounds.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we're on a good stride right now. So I think that's going to keep climbing.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, just kind of walk me through what has the transformation internally and externally been like for you working with PCC, going from, let's say, 50 pounds down to now 116, so an extra 66 in the time that we've been working together over 2 years, should I say. So like just for the people that might be watching this later, that's that's 30 something pounds a year. So it's not like we're losing 100 pounds in a year. We're not losing even 50 pounds in a year. So it has been really slow, but I would love to know from you just kind of what has the transformation been like inside and out?
Okay. So I would say, it has been slow. It's been slower than I had thought. But I've done fast, and fast didn't work. So I'm okay with what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. I feel like it's given me a chance to get used to my smaller body as it comes. It's given me a chance to kind of mentally work through it. And I would say the differences between the programs I did before and working with you, well, number one is just the one-on-one that you address. And as we run into problems, we talk about them. It's not a group setting. It's not a doctor who just gives me a prescription after weighing me. So that has been huge. And working with you, we've also delved into the mental stuff. And it's been hard. And, there are times on the check-ins that I cry to you. But that's good, because I think those are the things that I had not addressed. And obviously needed to in order to be successful permanently.
Absolutely. And I think those are the conversations that are kind of understated. And even I've been understating it. I had someone tell me the other day that I don't talk about this stuff enough. So I'm like trying to make it a point to talk about what is that mental stuff that we're working through that is creating this more permanent change. And so for you, Carolyn, I'm curious, like, what are some of the identities that you've had to work on and leave behind? And what are some of the identities that you're trying to create for yourself as you kind of separate yourself from the person you were to the person that you're becoming?
Gosh. So I would say one of the things that I learned through you was the push and the pull. So what makes me want to lose that weight? What is pushing me to lose that weight? But then what's going to happen when I lose that weight? What's going to be my motivation? So I also need a pull. And so for me, it's a lot of looking back at things that I couldn't do or that I struggled to do. Hiking in Sedona, anything like that where it was a kind of a physical exertion that I either didn't feel comfortable doing or was scared to do, or was afraid that I would fail halfway through. Those are the things that's kind of my pull is I don't ever want to go back there. So a lot of it is just that, in addition to kind of my mental thoughts of, talking to myself, what a fat ass, I mean, all of that we need to address. That I would never say that to a family member or a best friend. Why would I say it to myself? So all of those little things that I think were also kind of holding me back, that we've addressed, and that I'm still a work in progress. But those kind of things to completely change my mindset, I think.
Totally. Yeah. And like, just for, I guess, context on maybe someone who doesn't understand why that's important, why that works. Like for you, when it comes to like your self-talk and like what you've had to kind of let go of and change, like what would be an example of how that would hold you back in the past? And then how has that shifted now?
I don't know that I can explain how it would hold me back, other than I think just kind of common sense. If you're constantly berating yourself, if you're constantly putting yourself down, how is that going to help you? How is that going to let you be successful? And you said it perfectly, about it's not this big jump to saying what a fat ass and then looking in the mirror the next day and saying, man, I love you and I love how you look. So it's a gradual to neutral, you know. I didn't want to be fake about it, but I wanted to stop putting myself down. So look at myself in the mirror and say, okay, well, this outfit's all right for now, but you know, it'll look better. Just kind of that transition into that, or you know, when you look at yourself in pictures and or you don't even want to take a picture, those kind of things I think just mentally will ultimately affect your success or lack of success.
No, I think that's a great example of that like negative mentality to a neutral mindset about like, okay, this is what it is. And like really coming at it from a place of acceptance rather than a place of self-hatred or punishment. Because the outcomes of that statistically are just far lower in terms of success rate when you're just beating yourself into a pulp because you think you know need to be punished for what you've done. I will insert one example here, which is kind of an identity that you might have even forgotten about or left behind a while ago, which is being a stress eater. I am a stress eater. And I think that there's a lot of people that say that and they say, well, I am a stress eater. So, you know, and think about if that is something that is so firmly implanted into our mind, how is that going to show up when stress arises, whether we like it or not, whether we realize it or not, that plays a role in how consistent and adherent we're going to be if we hold on to that identity. So that was something that I think you worked on and let go of a while ago, where there was a check-in at some point that came around and was like, you wrote, I just am not a stress eater anymore. Like I like don't handle it that way. And I have different outlets and like that's something that I let go of. So that was like one example that I thought of where it may have impacted your ability to be consistent or lose all the weight in the past. But now it hasn't. Do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's funny to me. Like I mean, I don't know why the change happened, but it definitely changed. I feel like food is not my go-to. Not exactly sure when that happened, but I'm certainly not going to complain about it. And I think the other thing that you've done for me is to have me look at who I want to be when I get to the weight that I want to be at. So who is 160-pound Carolyn? And what is her life like? What is her day like? And I think that helps visualizing that I'm going to be active, that I'm going to be going to the gym, that I'm going to be walking my 7,000 to 10,000 steps a day. I think that's huge in envisioning what you're going to be long term.
Absolutely. And then also giving yourself credit for the ways that you are already that person. Right. And I think that that's where I think a lot of people get in trouble. And like these are conversations that we'll be having as we edge closer and closer to that end goal is, you know, how have you already been her? It's not like you get there and all of a sudden, like now I'm happy, right? It's like you've been achieving that the whole way through, because a lot of times what happens at the end of the journey is we think that we're going to feel differently when we get there and we don't, and then we're disappointed and then we self-sabotage. And so if we can have that conversation now, it's going to just have you feel so settled and accomplished by the time that you get there. You're like, I am that person and I've been that person. And that's going to be so cool.
And I think one thing that I think of when I'm working on my list is I think long term, like in 3 years, what do I want to be doing? Because I certainly don't want to be back at the weight that I was when I started 2.5, 3 years ago.
Totally. I love it. Well, I'm curious for you, maybe what are some maybe limiting beliefs that you've had to break through this process?
Oh gosh. I'd say the big one is just my track record, and the fact that I didn't think I could do it. Yeah, I can lose it. I've got that part down pretty well. I can't maintain it. I mean, I probably said that to you 100 times. I can't maintain it. I can't maintain it. So that's huge, because then once again, if you're saying it to yourself all the time, how are you going to be successful? So I'd say that's probably the biggest one, was that I can't do this.
Yeah, definitely. And that's been just a huge topic of conversation. But I guess my question for you then is, what do you say to yourself right now? How do you feel about that statement right now?
You know, as someone who has struggled with their weight for almost all of their adult life, there's still that little thing back there that's what's going to happen when you get to maintenance, and you don't have that goal of tracking everything that you eat every day. But I think, I mean, I have been doing it. You and I have taken a couple breaks. One was a 2-month kind of maintenance trial. And then periodically we've had, you know, if I've had a 2-week vacation, or, you know, I think one holiday in December, we kind of laid off on things. And I was successful. So I think it's showing me, it's proving to me that I can do it, and that I will do it, and that I don't want to go back this time, period.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's like, even if you don't believe in yourself, if you build a stack of reasons that it's irrefutable that you can't do something, or that you can do something, like, then it's like the data shows more than like our feelings at that point, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what we've been building this whole time, is that more recent track record of like, okay, like we can change the narrative. And I think it's so true that you really do just become what you tell yourself that you are. And so it's awesome to just see and hear and constantly be just having this conversation over and over again in different ways of how you're speaking to yourself and what you're creating as a result of that. So I love it. Well, I mean, I guess we'll say other than that, or like if there's anything else that comes to mind, but how has your coach helped you maybe in areas of your life that you didn't anticipate you'd get help in?
Well, I would say just generally, I have gotten so much more out of this than I ever thought that I would. And I did want to say, you kind of mentioned the data. You are so good at talking me off the ledge, which you have had to do many, many times, with kind of that almost scientific, what does the data show? You know, when I tell you, I can't even think of some of the things that I've said sometimes, but that your answer is, but Carolyn, is that true? Let's look at the data. I guess probably I can't lose weight, or I haven't lost weight in a couple weeks, but is that true? You know, and then we go back and we look at the data. So you're teaching me, you just educated me so much. I just can't even, I mean, it has just completely changed how I look at dieting, quote unquote, you know, my relationship with food, learning foods that are higher in fat and higher in carbs, learning that there's got to be a balance between those things. I've just been educated so much more than any other program that I have done before.
Well, thank you. And that's really great to hear, because I think it's not a matter of teaching you just what, right? Just what's in the food, how to eat. It's not the what and the how, but it's how to think about things. Because a lot of times I think something that gets in most people's way is their feelings of, I feel like I'm not losing weight. I feel like I'm not making progress. And that is the trigger point where most people dive into self-sabotage or apathy, or just like not pressing forward. But the reality of it is you only fail if you quit. And that's where the quitting starts. And so if you understand how to look at the data and say, actually, the proof shows otherwise, or the proof doesn't show otherwise, but now I have all the data to show where the hole is, right? Of like, where do I improve? And so it's been great to like give that to you, because now I'm not even really like, I don't even feel like I talk you off the ledge anymore. I feel like I get a check-in that's like start to finish, like, this was my emotion, here's the data, here's like what I know is true. I just still feel some type of way about it, but it's gonna be fine. Um,
And to that point, I actually have one of the post-it notes on my monitor in behind me basically says, I feel blank and that's okay. Because we've talked about how I can get upset when I get on the scale and gosh darn it, overnight I gained 3 pounds. Yeah, I can feel upset. I have that right. I can be frustrated, but then I need to let it go. I need to analyze it. I certainly didn't gain fat, 3 pounds of fat overnight. So let's think it through. Let's be rational and work through it rather than, like you said, just reacting to this feeling of, well, shoot, if I gain 3 pounds overnight, I might as well go to the pantry and find the box of cookies. That doesn't help. And so, yeah, and I guess that does expand even beyond weight loss and fitness is monitoring my feelings when they happen and acknowledging that they're okay, but then working through them and letting them go.
and I think that's just such a powerful skill for any area of life, right? You just get farther when you're able to look at things more logically. So I love it. And I think this is like, I really appreciate that you agreed to do this in the first place and where we went with it, because I think it's an awesome testimony to the fact that, you did all this stuff, you have this proof in the pudding that you lost all this weight, but you're still human. You still struggle with these things. And there's so much real in it of like, it doesn't all just go away when you lose weight. Like there's still more to work on, and it just shows that aspect of the journey so well. So I really appreciate that. But I'm curious, this is one of my favorite questions because it always goes in a million different directions. But, you've obviously heavily invested in yourself with PCC and, throughout multiple years. I'm just curious, like, where did your skepticisms lie when it came to signing up, continuing on? Like, where was it financial? Was it, is this going to work for me? Like, back to when you started.
Skepticism, obviously, like I've said before, I've failed 100 times. Why is this one going to be any different? Why do I think that I'm going to do anything differently to make it be successful? And sure, financial, yeah, that's always, I think, a factor. But again, it showed me when I broke my leg. Number one, I was embarrassed if someone had to help, pick me up or anything like that, because of my size. And number two, it made me realize I can either spend money on myself now, or I guess I can wait and spend money on diabetes medication, insulin shots, blood pressure medication, hospitalizations. I think it honestly, for me, was becoming almost a medical necessity. I was pre-diabetic, but it was certainly heading down that path. So do you spend the money now and get yourself right and in good shape, or do you, I watch people in our neighborhood, they're in and out of the hospital. I didn't want to be that. And that costs money too. So I chose to spend my money in a different way.
And a really good way, I would say. And we're
Absolutely.
still crushing it. So I guess my last question for you is just, and I want you to actually think about this in the terms of, the Carolyn that you were 3-something years ago, when you were like thinking about making a change. Maybe the accident hadn't happened yet, but what would you say to somebody who is in the shoes that you were in? They have to lose a whole person, and they're looking at a journey like this, a program like this, and they're like, I just don't know. What do you have to say to that person?
You are worth it. I wish I hadn't waited so long. It is hard, but with a coach on your side, it makes it so much easier, and they are so helpful and educational. And like I said, talking you off the ledge when you need to. It's accountability, but it's not like this rude, rude accountability. It's just keeping you on track and encouraging you. So much encouragement. I just, I can't say enough. I do it. It'll make you feel better. It'll give you a better quality of life. It'll make you be okay being in pictures on vacation. Just so many things that I would say, don't wait if you don't have to.
Oh, good stuff. All right. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to bring to the table for this conversation that I haven't already covered or asked you about?
Oh, I'm sure there's 1,000 things I could say. I mean, I can't really think of anything. I'm so grateful. And this is the first time that I feel like ready when I'm done with you, when I graduate. I honestly feel like I can do this, I can keep going. And just my quality of life is so much better than it was before I met you.
Love you. All right. Well, I'm going to cut the live stream here, but everybody who's watching down the road later today, throughout the weeks, just comment below some appreciation for Carolyn and her story, because it is an amazing one. And I'm just really grateful that I was able to facilitate sharing it. So just comment some encouragement, tag her in a comment, let her know that you watched this, that this was helpful for you if it was. And thank you guys so much for watching.